Hi students, today we will learn about physiological anatomy and functions of the brainstem. The brainstem consists of from below upwards, medulla oblongata, pons and midbrain. So you can see this the about the medulla oblongata. Okay. So what its surface contains? So you can see here the external features, that is the ventral surface of the medulla oblongata. Here you can see anterior median sulcus. So there is a sulcus here that is called anterior median sulcus. On either side of this anterior median sulcus, it consists of the pyramids. So these are the two pyramids. Then comes the olives. Okay, two olives. Then comes inferior cerebellar peduncles and gracilis and cuneatus tubercles and cranial nerves. Okay, so and you have emergence of the cranial nerves 9, 10, 11 and 12. So these are the cranial nerves which are emerging from the medulla oblongata. So you have anterior median sulcus, pyramid, anterolateral sulcus, olives and posterolateral sulcus. And here in the middle you have pyramidal decussation. So it is connected to the cerebellum via the inferior cerebellar peduncles. And it has gracilis and cuneatus tubercles. So you can see the internal structure of the medulla. So it shows the transverse section at the level of pyramidal decussation. So this yellow one is the pyramidal decussation. So what is this decussation? It comes in further classes. So you can see here fasciculus gracilis, then fasciculus cuneatus, spinal tract of trigeminal. This is the spinal nucleus of the trigeminal nerve. And these are the lateral corticospinal tracts. This is the central canal. This is the central gray matter. This is the anterior gray column. And this one is the yellow one is the pyramidal decussation. These are the pyramids. Okay. And this is the white matter which is continuous with anterior and lateral funiculi of the spinal cord. Okay. So it shows the internal structure of the medulla at the level of the pyramidal decussation. So fasciculus gracilis, cuneatus, this part is comprising of spinal tract and spinal nucleus of the trigeminal. This is the central canal. This is the gray matter and all this is the white matter. And here comes lateral corticospinal tracts and this is the pyramidal decussation. These are the pyramids. Okay. So here comes transverse section at the level of sensory decussation. So here you can see nucleus gracilis and nucleus cuneatus. Okay, these fibers are coming from the medial lemniscus and sensory decussation. So this is the level of sensory decussation. So from this area, left side fibers and right side fibers will cross and goes to the nucleus gracilis and nucleus cuneatus. So at the level you can see the pyramids, central canal, central gray matter and white matter and some reticular formation. Then comes transverse section at the level of olives. So if you take the transverse section of the middle oblongata at the level of the olive, you can see all these structures. So these are the cranial nerve nuclei. Okay. And this is the inferior cerebellar peduncle which connects the medulla oblongata to the cerebellum. And this is the spinal tract and nucleus of the trigeminal nerve. This is the reticular formation. This is the inferior olivary nucleus. This is the medial lemniscus. This is the pyramid. Okay. So you can see inferior olivary nucleus. Okay. A pair of inferior olivary nuclei at the level of olives. Then comes functions of the medulla oblongata. So it forms the pathway for the ascending and descending tracts. Okay, so the first and foremost important function is it forms pathway for the ascending and descending tracts. The second important function is it is the house of vital centers like respiratory center, vasomotor center, cardiac center, deglutition center, vomiting center, and salivatory center. And the third one is cranial nerve nuclei which emerges from those. This one is so the 12th cranial nerve which supplies the tongue, 11th cranial nerve supplies the shoulder, 10th cranial nerve supplies the viscera, and 8th cranial nerve it forms the auditory. It functions as auditory and vestibular function. So these are the important functions of the medulla oblongata. So it forms the pathway for the tracts, both ascending and descending, and it is the house of vital centers, and so many nuclei, cranial nerve nuclei emerges from this medulla oblongata. Then comes to pons. So what is the gross anatomy? So you can see on the ventral aspect of the pons, okay, basilar sulcus. In the middle you can see basilar sulcus or sulcus basilaris. Then this pons is connected to cerebellum via middle cerebellar peduncle via the pontocerebellar fibers. Okay, this is the middle cerebellar peduncle. It is connected through pontocerebellar fibers. Then it has a groove, okay, at the junction between the pons and medulla, from where you can see the origin of the cranial nerves 6, 7 and 8. Okay, abducent nerve, facial nerve and vestibulocochlear nerve. Then comes the dorsal aspect of the pons. You can see the median sulcus, median eminence, okay, or it is also called facial colliculus. Okay, so in the median eminence you can have facial colliculus and sulcus limitans. Sulcus limitans. This is the sulcus limitans. Okay, so median sulcus, median eminence, sulcus limitans. So median eminence consists of the facial colliculus. So this is the dorsal aspect of the pons. So the ventral and basilar part. So the structural components remains the same in the upper and lower part of the pons. Here you should notice that in the upper and lower part of the pons, the ventral aspect is same. Okay, but the dorsal aspect or tegmental part is different for the pons, for the upper and lower parts. So what are the structural components of the internal structure of the basilar part of the pons? So it will have white matter, okay, which is having descending fibers. What are these descending fibers? They may be longitudinal fibers, that is corticospinal or corticonuclear and corticopontine fibers, and transverse fibers like pontocerebellar fibers. Okay, and gray matter has the pontine nuclei. So these are the gray matter content and white matter content in the basilar part of the pons. Coming to tegmental part of the pons. So you have white matter, okay, which is having ascending tracts like medial lemniscus, okay, which is a posterior column tract, carries conscious proprioception, and spinal lemniscus, okay, lateral spinothalamic tract. It carries pain and temperature sensation from the body except from the head region. And lateral lemniscus, it contains auditory pathway. In the upper pons only you can see. And trigeminal lemniscus, which carries pain and temperature sensations from the head region. And in the lower pons you can see ventral spinocerebellar peduncle. So this is the white matter in the tegmental part of the pons. So it contains posterior column tracts, lateral spinothalamic tract, auditory and trigeminal and a spinocerebellar tract. And grey matter has these nuclei: spinal nucleus of trigeminal, chief sensory nucleus of trigeminal, motor nucleus of trigeminal, abducent nucleus, facial nucleus, and vestibular cochlear nuclei. So this is the grey matter. Then comes internal structure of the pons. You can see transverse section of the upper pons and transverse section of the lower pons. So you can see here. So all these things. Some descending tracts, some ascending tracts, and some other structural components, and some cranial nerve nuclei with functional component. So cranial nerve nuclei, motor nucleus of trigeminal, chief sensory nucleus of trigeminal, and ascending tracts like lateral lemniscus, spinal, trigeminal, medial lemniscus. Descending tracts like tectospinal, rubrospinal, corticospinal, corticonuclear, corticopontine, and other structural components like pontine nuclei, pontocerebellar fibers. So if you take the section of the lower pons at the level of facial colliculus, what you can see? So some ascending tracts like anterior spinocerebellar, spinal tract of trigeminal, spinal lemniscus, medial lemniscus, descending tracts like tectospinal, rubrospinal, corticospinal, corticonuclear, and corticopontine. And you have trapezoid body here and some pontine nuclei and pontocerebellar fibers. And the cranial nerve nuclei with its functional component like vestibular nerve, abducent nerve, facial nerve, okay, superior elevated nucleus, cochlear nerve, and spinal nucleus of the trigeminal nerve. Okay, so you have ascending, descending tracts and some cranial nerve nuclei with its functional components and some other structural components in the upper pons and lower pons. Then functions of the pons. What the pons will do? So it acts as a connecting pathway between the cerebral cortex and the cerebellum. The pontine nuclei receive corticopontine fibers and their axons from the middle cerebellar peduncles, which serve as a connecting pathway between the cerebral cortex and cerebellum. So, the pontine nuclei receive corticopontine fibers. Then, from the pons to the cerebellum, pontocerebellar fibers will be going through the middle cerebellar peduncles. Then second function is pathway for the ascending and descending tracts of the spinal cord and medulla oblongata. Then it houses the nuclei of the 5th, 6th, 7th and 8th cranial nerves. And it is a joining station for medial lemniscus with the fibers of 5th, 7th, 9th and 10th cranial nerves. And it contains pneumotaxic and apneustic centers for regulation of respiration. So these are the important functions of the pons. Okay. So it acts as a connecting pathway between the cerebral cortex and cerebellum, and it has tracts of the ascending and descending fibers, and it houses these nuclei, and it is a joining station for the medial lemniscus with fibers of all these 4 cranial nerves, and it contains 2 important centers which regulate the respiration. Those are pneumotaxic and apneustic centers. Then coming to midbrain. So this is the gross anatomy of the midbrain. So coming to internal structures. So if you take at the level of superior colliculi a section, what you can see in the midbrain. So you can see cerebral aqueduct, superior colliculus, pretectal nucleus, inferior brachium, mesencephalic nucleus of the trigeminal nerve, oculomotor nerve, medial longitudinal fasciculus, red nucleus, substantia nigra, dorsal tegmental decussation, ventral tegmental decussation, and here frontopontine fibers, corticospinal and corticonuclear fibers, temporopontine, paretopontine and occipitopontine fibers. Is the central tegmental tract, medial lemniscus, trigeminal lemniscus, lateral spinothalamic and spinotectal tract. So all these you can see if you take a section, transverse section at the level of superior colliculi. Here you can see parts of the midbrain as tectum, cerebral peduncles and tegmentum. So it is the tectum, okay, it is the cerebral peduncle and it is the tegmentum. So cerebral peduncles consists of substantia nigra and crus cerebri. Tegmentum consists of red nucleus, reticular formation, cranial nerve 3, 4 and 5 and 3 decussations. Coming to superior cerebellar peduncle. So it is the mainly efferent connection from the cerebellum, okay, to the midbrain. So it is connected through superior cerebellar peduncle, which is mainly efferent, that is outgoing fibers it has. Okay, so it consists of efferent fibers, mainly arises from the dentate nucleus, which passes to the opposite side of the midbrain, okay, and then divides into ascending and descending fibers. Ascending fibers pass and end in the red nucleus and thalamus. Descending fibers join the olivary formation and reticular formation. Okay, so ascending fibers forms, afferent fibers forms the anterior spinocerebellar tract and rubrocerebellar. Comes to Forel's decussation. So what is this? This is the rubrospinal tract. So coming from the red nucleus to the spinal cord. So it originates from the red nucleus. Okay, then it crosses the midline and descends as the rubrospinal tract. It goes through pons and medulla oblongata and terminates in the anterior gray column of the spinal cord. So its function is it facilitates the activity of the flexor muscles. So where it is crossing, forms Forel's decussation. So it forms a Forel's decussation in the midbrain, rubrospinal tract. So you have Maynard's decussation, Forel's decussation and decussation of the fibers from the superior cerebellar peduncle. So this Maynard's decussation is formed from the tectospinal tract. Okay. So these fibers are coming from the superior colliculi. They will cross to form the Maynard's decussation. This is the superior colliculus. Here they will cross, they will form the Maynard's decussation. So 3 decussations you can observe in the midbrain. So first one is the fibers which are crossing from the superior cerebellar peduncle, and second one is a Forel's decussation which is formed by rubrospinal tract, and third one is a Maynard's decussation which is formed by tectospinal tract. Next video is on ascending tracts of spinal cord and brainstem.